Did anyone else's ears perk up when Vanessa said this?
Right now. I'd been with Xander for 4 years. I lost a spark. And as much as I loved her, like she was more my best friend, my roommate, versus like this thrilling relationship.
Maybe it's just because I'm a therapist and I work around sexual issues a lot, but didn't it seem like she was referring to lesbian bed death? Let's listen to Abby Wambach and her wife discuss this issue on their podcast.
It's like lesbians meet and then they fall deeply, deeply in love in 4 minutes, and then they have so much sex for like 2 weeks. And then the lesbian bed is where sex goes to die. Like nobody ever.
So here we have 2 young, I'm assuming healthy women who've been together for 4 years, and they have lost the spark and are living like roommates. Unfortunately, this is a very common story that I hear from many of my queer clients. A client will tell me that their partner just doesn't seem interested in sex, so they no longer pursue it. Or they themselves will say they don't have a strong sex drive and really rarely think about sex at all. By the way, my name is Catherine Sloan. I've been a licensed therapist for 20 years, and I have an amazing wife and 4 kids. Please like and subscribe to my channel. Now, I want to explain to you why this sexual issue is more likely to happen with 2 women than in a heterosexual relationship, and what you can do about it. I want to dispel some myths about the female sex drive and give you some tips for having a joyful and healthy sex life so that you can avoid having a long-term roommate as a partner. I will be getting most of my information from the book Come As You Are by Emily Nagoksy. It's one of the best books ever written in the field of sexology. Now, Emily travels all over the world, training professionals, teaching college students, and other lay people about the science and art of sexual well-being. First, let's talk about arousal, which basically means getting turned on. Now, most of us are raised believing that sexual desire should just be spontaneous. It just appears out of the blue. You think a sexy thought, or you see a sexy person, you're walking down the street, minding your own business, and just hits you like lightning. Kaboom! You get sexually aroused. Let's also listen to Emily discuss this.
It's what the researchers call spontaneous desire that just sort of seems to appear out of the blue. Erica Moen, the cartoonist who illustrated my book, draws spontaneous desire as a lightning bolt to the genitals. Kaboom!
I am here to tell you that nothing is wrong with you if you don't experience sexual desire spontaneously. This doesn't mean you have a low sex drive. It just means that you have a different arousal response that most other women have too. There are 2 types of arousal, spontaneous and responsive. And the first one we will discuss is spontaneous desire. This occurs in about 75% of men and 15% of women. Spontaneous sexual desire is exactly what it sounds like. It shows up instantly without stimulation. You just suddenly feel horny for no reason. It starts internally with a simple thought or just a feeling of arousal. With these statistics, this means 25% of men and a vast majority of women, 85%, do not experience spontaneous desire. So if you have 2 women in a relationship together and neither of them experience spontaneous arousal, which is highly likely based on these statistics, then they are more likely to end up having little to no sex in a long-term relationship. So they would have what we call lesbian bed death. One myth that has been taught to us is that spontaneous sexual desire is a prerequisite for having a healthy sex life, and that is just not true. So how do 85% of women experience sexual pleasure or excitement if they don't have spontaneous desire? Responsive sexual desire is when desire shows up in response to stimulation, meaning something sexy happens and the body responds. Nagoksy found that 30% of women experience responsive desire, meaning these folks need more than a sexy thought to want to have sex. Something has to create motivation to want sex and slowly build that interest. So engaging in activities that are pleasurable gives the mind and body something to respond to. This could be many things like back massages, taking a bath together, having some skin-on-skin contact in the shower, and many other things. Now, there's also something called contextual arousal. This is when the circumstances and environment impact the ability to feel desire. Maybe it's difficult for you to get turned on if your dog is staring at you while you're trying to initiate sex in bed. Or maybe if there's like a sink full of dishes or a pile of laundry at the end of the bed, it's difficult to get turned on. Maybe you can't focus because your kid's bed is on the other side of the wall. And these are all what Nagoksy would call inhibitors. Let's listen to Emily talk about that.
Sexual accelerator notices all the sexually relevant information in the environment, everything you see, hear, smell, touch, taste, or imagine that your brain codes as sexually relevant, and it sends a signal that says, turn on. And it is functioning at a low level all the time, including right now. Just the fact that we're talking about sex is a little bit sexually relevant. At the same time that that's happening, in parallel, your brake is noticing all the very good reasons not to be turned on right now. This is everything you see, hear, smell, touch, taste, or imagine that your brain codes as a potential threat. And it sends a signal that says, turn off. So the process of becoming aroused is the dual process of turning on the ons and turning off the offs. Usually when people struggle with their sexual well-being, it's because, well, sometimes it's because there's not enough stimulation to the gas pedal, but more often it's because there's too much stimulation to the brake. And all kinds of things can hit the brake, like...
In her book, Dr. Nagoksy goes even deeper into the science behind our sex drive and explains the dual model composed of sexual accelerators, or the gas pedal, and the sexual inhibitors, or the brakes. These are responsible for what turns us on and what turns us off, and when and why and how. Now, because we live in a culture where there's so much taboo around sex, we don't give ourselves the chance to understand our sexual accelerators, or the things that turn us on, and our brakes, the things that turn us off. So exploring your arousal and the factors that make up Emily's concept of sexual inhibitors, or the brakes, and exciters, the accelerators, is the key to improving your intimate experiences. Your accelerators could be something like mood light, music, an aphrodisiac, a certain type of meaningful conversation, or some eye contact, a certain scent, or certain types of touch. This is when self-discovery around your own body and having good communication with a partner is essential. One place you could start with is for you and your partner to actually read Come As You Are as a couple, or just watch some of her online videos with Emily Nagoksy talking about these things. You could watch them together and then have a discussion. Just like everything else in a healthy relationship, this takes work, and you'll want to make it a priority or it just won't happen.
Sex is easier to prioritize when everyone involved likes the sex. So talk to each other about what kind of sex is worth wanting. And if you haven't read it yet, please go read Peggy Kleinplatz and Dana Maynard's Magnificent Sex, which is about the research on the extraordinary lovers. And finally, the ultimate real answer to having great sex in the long term is releasing yourselves from the cis heteronormative scripts about how you're supposed to experience sex and who's allowed to have it or do it and what's supposed to happen while you're doing it.
All of this information means that if we feel that the flame in the bedroom has died down with our long-term partner, it's not the end. If both parties spend the time learning about each other's brakes and accelerators, it's possible to rekindle the flame and discover new highs of sexual pleasure. Thanks for watching this video, and I hope it has been helpful. Please subscribe to my channel, and I will see you next time.